All right, I want to thank everybody for joining us here. We are now live, and Sophia is going to be discussing some very important things here. And I'm just going to make sure that there are no other audio issues on my end. And if there are, we'll take care of that because I can hear myself in the background,
Sorry,
and
I'm trying
hopefully
to
that's okay.
use it
I thought
right
it was
now.
my feed, but that's all right. But
No.
Sophia is joining us here. You've got some very important stuff for us to talk about, and I just like to give my encoder a few seconds to catch up to make sure the health stream is okay. I want it to show green, and of course, it's going to show me yellow. So I'm going to check that. That usually means that I am operating a bit higher than I should be on here, but that's okay because of the internet issues and everybody's on the internet at the same time. This looks good, so I am going to make sure that that is on mute. Then I'm going to bring up the PowerPoint here that I have. Looking at slide 1, which is just a basic standard thing here. DNA and item 57 with Sophia. So you have brought up some very interesting things, and I'm going to pull up my show notes that we have here. I don't know if they're going to be in any order or not, but I'll make sure that these notes and these links are that people can access these, and of course we're going to post this into the group. But we are live right now, so if anybody is in the chat room, if you have any questions, any comments, or concerns, this is the perfect time to go ahead and ask those. We're going to ask that we kind of stay on topic here, but after this presentation is over, if you have any questions or anything that you'd like to talk about, we'll try to hold on the line and we will try to address those. So, with that being said, this is Gray Stage episode, I believe, number 181, if I'm correct. I could be wrong. And Sophia, you have the floor. Let us know your thoughts here. Start us off.
Well, let's see here. We're going to go to item 57, which was the bullet that went through the living room ceiling by the light. It ended up into the attic. And when the police found this item, was it February 14th, Greg?
They found it on February 18th, I believe. February 18th or February 19th. So pretty much 1 month
Okay,
later.
thank you. A month later, correct. Uh, they said that this is the results of the laboratory examination. Blood was not detected on item 57. However, a sample was collected from item 57 as item 57 1. There was a nuclear test done on this, and they said it was a male DNA profile which matched David Timothy Crowley. And so the articles that I found, because of how the hole was observed and the fact that there wasn't blood detected, when they were writing that, they were discussing. Here, I need to get back to that slide real fast. They're detecting or they're discussing DNA. This whole item right here, uh, screenshot for results of laboratory examination, Greg.
Yep, I got that one pulled up right now.
Okay, that is discussing DNA. So they did find DNA on that one area. Now, if we could go to article, uh, can you, are you able to pull up successful DNA profiling from cartridge casings? Is it possible?
Yeah, which article is that? I got DNA profiling from cartridge casing. Is it possible? Okay, let me pull that one up right now. We'll take a look. All right, and this is written by Susanna Ryan. I got that up on the screen right now. Looks like December
And
10th, 2015.
what I was going to focus on in regards to this was they were extracting DNA from fired bullets and cartridge casings. And the type of DNA that they were bringing from this was possible transfer touch DNA, and that it was still able to survive on the bullet casings and the fragment that comes out of the casing. Is that correct? Catherine, are you still here?
Yes, I'm still here. Yeah.
It's it's called a fragment, right? When it comes out of the casing
Correct.
after it's
Once it,
fired?
yes. Once it hits something and it then fragments, it's a bullet fragment.
Okay,
It's
thank
still
you
a
very much.
it's a projectile until it hits something and fragments.
Thank you. And so what they are discussing is that they could actually find DNA, which is left over from your fingertips, and as you're loading the bullets into the gun, the magazine clip. Um, I suck at this. I'm sorry. I don't know the terminology for guns.
Don't call it a clip. I
And
got in a lot of trouble for calling it a clip. That's all I'll
okay,
say. That's all I've learned.
the
It's a
magazine.
So,
magazine.
yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, so like I said, I don't know very much about them, so I just want to try to be as accurate. And it says in part of this article, when the gun, many people had thought that the DNA would be obliterated when the gun was discharged due to intense heat generated during the firing. And in fact, it is estimated that the internal temperature of the firearm chamber can reach up to 18,000 degrees Celsius, in between, that's a lot of technical DNA. I mean, a lot of technical terminology. Surely DNA cannot withstand this intense heat, or can it? And their study in 2004 goes to show that in the end they were actually able to pull DNA off of fired casings and bullet fragments, even shotgun shells. And I found that was extremely interesting. A lot of this, they use the nuclear DNA testing because it's the most sensitive. And I did include an article with Greg. I have posted these articles in the past within the group. It's just so much has happened during that time that Greg and I weren't able to record this. So we're just trying to go over it right now. It's called, the article that I had posted, Forensic Serology, and it's talking about blood detection, semen, saliva, and then there was another one.
Can I jump in here real quick while you're looking
Please.
for that? I
Thank
think you
you.
might be looking for the microRNA. But it's really important for maybe some people, maybe this might help explain a little bit for the DNA. In order to get matches for DNA, they need nucleated cells. So things like red blood cells. You need a cell with a nucleus because that's what's going to contain the DNA information. So that's how they're going to find and how they're able to match contributors versus non-contributors. So if you have a blood sample and it does not have someone's quote-unquote DNA in it, they didn't come in contact with that bullet or that evidence. And then from there they go, okay, there's no, like on this particular item 57, they swabbed it. There was no blood to be found at all on this fragment. They couldn't find anybody's blood, none. no blood, no tissue, no nothing. But they were able to find DNA, so then therefore nucleated DNA. So there were cells, some type of cell that contained David's genetic material, and then that's how they were able to put his DNA on this fragment. But that fragment, just by the how they describe it, the fact that there was no blood, this bullet never went through his body anywhere. And hopefully I explained it and didn't confuse.
Yes, you did. Thank you very much. I was trying to find my actual notes in regards to this, but it's very frustrating. The articles that I'm going to be posting again in the group are very enlightening because of the fact that I really did not believe that touch DNA would survive. And then after reading it, I was like, wow, that was an eye-opener, because they found that it could, and they were able to go back and find mixtures even, and it was...
Yeah, and I mean, I'm glad that the articles you posted were actually pretty interesting. I'm just now skimming through them, so I'll go back and read them in depth later. But they're very interesting. But and if people, for the most part, and I'm gearing this comment toward those who feel they know, not those who are seeking. So those who think they know, who don't know, and I know you're following my drift. It's like, where do they think all of the other DNA, especially in regard to this case, was obtained? I mean, if DNA didn't survive from being shot through something, and I guess they're talking about in the chamber, but there's even, there are lots of cases, or lots of examples in this case where, correct me if I'm wrong, I could be speaking out of turn, but they found DNA, and it wasn't necessarily only blood. And so why would it be different? Why would all of a sudden would there be an issue of this being, it can't be David's DNA from the fired gun because it would have been disintegrated or whatever inside the chamber when it was fired. It can't be in this instance, but it can be in all the other instances. And that stance on that never made sense to me.
And one of the reasons why they use the nuclear DNA, like you said earlier, was the fact that it is the most sensitive test. And if you could explain it one more time so that everybody can understand it, then...
Yeah, then they generally will go with, in order to get any kind of a DNA profile, you have to have a cell with a nucleus, because that is where the DNA is contained. So in order to find a quote-unquote DNA profile, you need to do nuclear DNA testing, because you're not going to find, like, there are far more nucleated cells if you're going with, like, say, your skin versus your saliva. Your saliva will still have it because you have cells within your mouth, but it's easier to get it from a swab of skin than it would be the mouth. And just, so whatever skin cells has a nucleus, and then they're testing that will be called a nuclear DNA test, and that is where they will find the DNA. Then they take that DNA profile and then match it with their known subjects to see who the profile matches.
Thank you very much.
I think that's one of the strangest thing is item 57, and I think by now everybody knows that. I think anybody who has only seen The documentary probably has no idea what we're talking about. They have no idea about item 57, no idea about item 53, no idea about the evidence that clearly shows that there is no evidence that David Crowley was guilty. There's barely any evidence that shows that he was even at that scene, aside from the fact that it's his house. But these articles, and we will make sure to post those too, because there are some. I mean, I think you sent me one, two, three, four of them, and this is really good stuff, because the DNA mixture, anything with the DNA is gonna go over my head. But if somebody, if people, instead of wanting to criticize, if they can help us understand what these things mean, then that just helps us understand the DNA profiling. It helps us understand the investigator's theory more. It helps us understand what really happened here. So it's like trying to get a crash course into this stuff has been challenging, because it's not, it's not something that is in my nature. It's not something that I necessarily would want to go out and just study on my own. But now I have a reason. This case has given me a reason to look into this stuff, to try to understand these DNA questions. And I think one of the biggest things is that a lot of times people don't want to ask questions because they don't want to look stupid. They really want to look like they have it all figured out. And I think with a case like this, and if you're going to be involved in something like this, you can't do that. You have to be willing to ask those stupid questions. And
well, and the thing to remember is, like, I had so many college professors, and even in high school, they would always say the only stupid question is the question that's never asked. Asking a question is not stupid. You have to ask it. Yeah.
Yes. The only one that's stupid is the one you don't ask.
Yeah, and I probably should have mentioned that we also have Catherine and Stephanie here too. Sorry, I didn't really introduce you here, but you both are here. We just recorded the podcast that will be coming out on May 1st, so I'm looking forward to that. But you both hung around here to kind of join us with some of this topic here. So thank you for that.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
And I'm in the middle of posting these. I'm posting the links in the group right now. I'm sorry. After coming off the other call, I thought it would be easy to go into this call, and I'm just finding myself a little flustered, and I apologize to the...
No, you have a lot going on there, girl. You have a lot of information, a lot of good information. So, but as you're doing that, like Greg was saying, for those who are relatively new to the case, I believe what Sophia really wants to cover is item 57, and that was the spent bullet fragment that was found in the attic a month after the bodies were found. This was not discovered by the police. This was not discovered by BCA. It was not discovered by the cleaning crew. It was discovered by Chris Klein, who lied to the police about who he was there at the house with. And I say he lied because he told the police he was there with Dan Sr. Dan Sr. says no, he was not there. Now this item 57, because when they collected the bodies and they collected the evidence, they had no bullet fragment, they had nothing that had David's blood. They did not have the bullet that killed David. They had the bullets that killed Kamel, or the bullets that went through Kamel and the bullet that went through Rania, but they did not have anything that gave them, okay, this was David's bullet. Now, a month later, Chris Klein calls and says, oh, we saw a hole in the ceiling, so we go up in the attic and we're looking for the bullet, and we found it, so there's a bullet fragment up here. The police then go and find it. They then label this item number 57. And here's the huge bone of contention. It is then implied that this is the bullet that supposedly killed David. Now, upon testing of this bullet fragment, according to lab report number 4, which is nuclear DNA, item 57 in the lab report says, blood was not detected on item 57. However, a sample was collected from item 57 as 57-1. Then they test item 57-1, and it comes back as male DNA profile. Now we know that there's no blood on it, so it has to be the nuclear DNA that they found. And it only matches David, does not match Camilla or Rania. It would not be expected to occur more than once among unrelated individuals in the world. And due to insufficient genetic information, no statement on minor types. So they don't know if anyone else touched this bullet or if it could have at one point had another person's DNA. It only had David's nuclear DNA. So that nuclear DNA, which is what Sophia is now showing you with the reports, is that it can survive, and it does survive, the firing pin and the mini explosion that occurs within the barrel of the gun. Once it fires, that DNA still survives, and that is what is located on this bullet. No blood, no hair, no tissue, but the DNA that did survive.
Okay, and I'm just pulling up some of the other articles that you have mentioned. Who loaded the gun? Recovering DNA from bullet casings. So that was one that you had mentioned that I thought was really good. And again, it's like I feel like I'm back in school trying to learn trying to process all of this stuff. And I think that's the biggest thing. It's maybe one of the reasons why so many people, when we talk about DNA, why it goes over their head and they don't take it seriously, is we don't know anything about DNA. You know, it's for people that know it, and you know, and I've talked to some people that know about this stuff, and they're almost like, I wouldn't say that well, you know what, the people that I have talked to, they do kind of look down on people that don't know about this stuff. And it's like, well, help me learn about this stuff. I want to understand DNA. I'm not trying to understand DNA that will prove, or that will, you know, go into what I think happened here. I just want to understand the DNA process and how it relates to this case. And it's been a challenge.
Mhm. I know that when the BCA lab reports came out initially, I took, gosh, quite a while. I binge watched every video I could get on YouTube in regards to trying to understand some of the terminology. And I'm the first to admit I am not an expert in this. I've always said that I was not an expert in regards to this. But I took the time to try to learn what we were reading and to understand what we were reading. And only because when you are trying to talk to somebody who knows about DNA, who studied it and is an expert, it's like they're speaking a completely different language. It is so over your head.
Yeah, I've had the same thing. That's exactly it. But if they're friends, you know, if they're good people, if they're people, you know, teachers, usually those are the
Hmm.
ones that are more tolerant of me asking the same question over and over again.
And that's
That's
why I kind of wanted Catherine on this call, because she understands it a little bit more and she can break it down.
right.
Well, and just to give everybody else, you know, a little bit more of my background is like, I was a nursing student for a long time. I had to go back and retake courses, but I've taken anatomy and physiology 3 times full course. I had like a year and a half anatomy and physiology, but due to health issues, I couldn't complete it. But I was an EMT for almost 10 years, and in my college courses, I had to take classes like microbiology, and of course A&P, and then also I took medical terminology. And then one of my jobs while I was in college was working for Roche Biomedical. So I have quite a varied work experience in this field. And I understand how it can be so daunting, because I know when I first sat down in class, you just sit there wide-eyed going, there's no way I'm going to know this by the end of the semester. But, you know, it's not always easy.
It's not.
You know, I think another reason why that the 485-page report looks so daunting is because of the wording.
Because
Because
of how
there
it's.
again, there's a
Yeah.
lot of ginormous words that we're like, wait, what's the, but where is that at? Is what was missing? Where was the gunshot? Like especially where they're saying 4 inches to the left or however they word it. That was like, Catherine, when you did that visual hit on YouTube where you're actually like pointing to the parts on your head, I cannot tell you how much that helped me.
Yeah.
Oh, you're welcome. I figured that would be a little bit easier because, yeah, well, even you know, and I have to admit, when I was first reading those autopsy, even to this day, when I read some of those autopsy reports and the way they describe it, it's not even correct. They didn't even write it out correctly, and you're just like, what? What are you?
Right. You look at it and you're like, wait, what? I don't even know how you would do that.
And that's
And
another reason
these
why.
are reports they're writing, like, for every single crime they go to. They're supposed to be able to relay this information to be put in a case report so that anybody reading them can feel like they're there, you know, be up to speed with all the information they need.
Exactly, and medical terminology is the same across the board. There's no cultural difference, there's no language barrier. It is what it is. And the fact that all 3 autopsies were written completely different, one not even using real medical terminology, is just stuff you swear they made up, is like, wow. It was, yeah, that's about all I can say.
And I am grateful for your video where you are describing the position that David's sitting in versus item 57 and how it went through the ceiling, because that really helps illustrate the fact that David did not shoot himself with that bullet. There's just, unless somebody moved his body.
Yeah, and a lot of
After the
people,
fact.
and what a lot of people I don't think understand about this particular bullet itself, yes, it may be a hollow point and it may be a 40 cal, but it loses a lot of its velocity or the speed at which it travels once it hits a hard object. So there's no way at all that bullet could have gone through his head, let alone done a 180 and then shot up and then had enough force to then penetrate into that attic, hit the top of the trusses, and then land back down. It's impossible. Once it goes through, it virtually will then drop. It kind of goes through, you know, depending on what it's going through. But when it hits something hard, it then expands. It loses the vast majority of its velocity, which means it slows down tremendously. And so there's no way that they will ever convince me that's the bullet that killed David. No way.
Yeah, between the lack of blood, skin, tissue on the bullet, and the lack of momentum that it would have had to have to punch through the ceiling and end up in the attic, that's not the bullet that killed David.
Exactly, and then they never really. Now, see, if they had brought in a blood spatter analyst, someone who then could do the strings, find each drop and bring it down to a focal point, they could have easily pinpointed where to very good accuracy, where these bodies were and whose body was where when they were injured. But they didn't do that. But the fact that there is no blood spatter, there's no brain matter from David or Rania for that matter. I don't even know if they found any of Kamel's brain matter. and I don't mean to be crude, so please, you know, I have to understand us medical people, we just say it like it is. We don't mean it crude. But, you know, there's nothing that shows a bullet penetrated David's head in that living room. So either he was not killed there, or they had something laid down, which then, you know, caught or, you know, stopped the blood and brain from splattering all over the house, which then tells you someone else is involved.
And that's what's so infuriating about this case is we see this, and yet it was ruled murder-suicide, and David is being painted as this monster, and we have this information in regards to the bullet. We have the information in regards to the skull piece being picked up, put down, picked up, picked down several times, and them contaminating the evidence, manipulating it, and this case is just not going to be reopened. And it's so frustrating and infuriating that we could clearly see this happening.
Exactly. And you know, and like I've, you know, said before, it's like I took that photo of the one of the bodies that is, I think Greg showed it on one of his videos recently. And, you know, this was a while ago, so I had access to that photo before. And I just showed it to some police officers that were in a different country. I had contacts over there because, you know, people here in America, sometimes they tend to do the buddy system. Oh, if a cop said that, I'm not going to, you know, say something against them. So, yeah, most of them here will remain silent. So I took it to a different country and brought it to them and said, hey, can you take it to your detectives and tell me what they say. Just show them the photo and then give me their gut response. And so when they took it to their detectives, their investigators, and they just said, okay, what does this photo tell you? The only thing they said is, that's a triple homicide. I mean, and they were just matter of fact, no question. It was not, was this a possible suicide? Straight out of mouth, triple homicide. So so to have that back up what it is that we're all seeing in this case, that everybody who has a logical brain sees in this case, it to me helped to solidify that we were definitely on the right track and we weren't just, you know, spinning our wheels. And you know, it's been said to you, I'm sure you've heard it, it's been said about you that we just are just, we're David fans, so we can't, we're just sticking up for David. And you know, that nothing, it's like, really, you don't even know me. I mean, if David had done this, I don't ever protect someone who hurts women and children. And if he had done this, I would be like all over, like, there's no way I would try to protect him. I would say he's guilty and here's why. But to blame him and call him guilty and vilify him for something he was not only is he innocent of, but he was brutalized horribly. It's like, no, I take a huge offense to that.
Thank you.
You know, a lot of that's an assumption, is if you believe he didn't do it, you must believe his whole New World Order thing. I have a lot of words for it. But you know, I read the script, and it doesn't seem like something this family could have been murdered over. You know, it's insofar as it's not anything way out of left field that nobody's ever done before. Like, it's not something that he was completely unique in making. Yes, he had parts of it, you know, that, I mean, it was a good storyline, but in the overall, I mean, there have been movies and books that have come out that describe far worse scenarios, and I mean they're bestsellers. Those are multi-million-dollar movies, you know. So I just, it kills me when it's assumed that we follow that. Is, you know, just because we don't believe he killed his family doesn't mean we believe he was right on track with his whole line of thinking,
and, you know,
I guess you could say.
Yeah, after reading that script, to be honest with you, and like I said before, it's like that version, and maybe there's probably a different version, but the version that was released, and I was not impressed. I mean, there were some parts where it's like, oh wait, this is really going to be really good, but then as it went along, I'm like, okay, wait, this ended up really sucking big time. So to convince me that he was killed for that script, no, I don't buy it. Not in the sense because he had he was revealing some big secret. Unless he was telling someone in Hollywood something he didn't write down, okay, that's possible. But to be killed over money because of the script is very plausible to me.
Right. But as far as somebody in the government planned this hit on David and his family because he was going to reveal something in the script, man, I can't figure out what, because I mean there are far better targets for the government to be going after with the stuff that they've, you know, written and made millions off of.
Yep.
I mean, you got hundreds of thousands of authors and directors and screenwriters that have put some, I mean, pretty serious allegations out there about the government, and they're still alive. So as far as the government planning this hit, I can't get behind that. I really can't. I can, what's the word? Humor it? You know, like listen to that side and consider, you know, their points. But I myself personally cannot make that connection that the government, out of all the other things that we've got going on in this world, even back in 2015, you know, he was not, unless, like you said, it was taken out of his script, unless there was something in there that was deleted that we haven't seen. There's nothing that I've seen so far that makes him any kind of a target for any kind of government.
Right, and the only, I will step forward and say this, because I don't mind opening mouth and inserting foot, but I will say this, that I see it as a cover-up, a quote-unquote government cover-up, in the aspect of the police are covering up the murders, the triple homicide. Now, what is their agenda behind that? I don't know. Now, is it because they were told to, or is it because they were lazy? But there's a definite cover-up in that regard. Now, but does it go higher up past them? I don't find that connection, so I can't rule it out. But it won't. It's not it's not necessarily my number one go-to.
Right. You know, it's crazy though, because you look at, he was speaking at all these different rallies and things like that, and yes, he had a very good way with words when he was speaking at these things. So in all honesty, there's a very wide, you know, if it wasn't somebody in his family or Kamel's family or somebody that was friends with them, there is a whole world full of people that could have watched the live streams when he was filming Gray State, or, you know, followed him and just like stalked him and wanted to kill him. We have no idea if that's the case, and if that is, who says we're ever going to be able to find that? If it was just some random person who was stalking him, I mean, Jesus. But we don't know, and that's the thing.
For those that haven't watched his live streams, they can be found on both Hothead Productions and the Gray State YouTube channels. those are very, very enlightening because you see David online. He is interacting with people, he's interacting with Camille and Ronnie, and
Mhm.
his behavior and attitude is not what is portrayed in the documentary.
Right.
And so I welcome all the new people to please go watch those live streams, and you'll see that how David was described by his own friends and family is just, it's despicable, because that's not, they were, they threw him under the bus, and it's
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah, like the saying
Because,
goes, with friends like that, who needs enemies?
Yeah.
yeah, and it's really disgusting, honestly. So,
You add in all the years worth of snide comments they've made about somebody that they
mhm.
were so close to, that just really blows you out of the water. Because I mean, I know several people who have OD'd in, that I was friends with, that I went to school with, that I hung out with. But I know that was their choice. That wasn't like they made that choice. So even though that was their choice, I'm not going to be the person who years later is going to post on a public forum for anybody in the world to see some crap about them. I don't know if this is for everybody, but I always thought we don't speak ill of the dead. I mean, yes, there are
Correct.
certain cases where, like Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, all these other big name serial killers, we take an interest in them because we want to figure out who they really are, what drove them, why they did these things, so that we can prevent that from happening to other people. Aside from that, he's just some crazy person who committed a bunch of horrible, heinous acts and really didn't deserve the breath in his lungs.
And yet, they all want to profit from his death and his work.
Right.
Well, they still are. I mean, did you just see the photo of Sean Wright over at the protests in Minnesota?
No, I didn't.
He was at some unicorn thing, and he's got a Gray State shirt on.
Yeah, so he's still trying to get that recognition.
Wow.
And using David to this day.
Unicorn Riot.
Yeah,
okay.
he was.
No words. Just wow.
I'm just like, you can't have it both ways, buddy. You can't sit there and say that he was this horrible person and killed his family, and then yet still try to piggyback off of Gray State.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Wow.
Why would you
words.
wear?
Absolutely no words.
I don't understand why you would wear a shirt created by a murderer, by someone.
Yeah, if they
you
believe
think...
he did that, why are they promoting Gray State anyways? If they honestly believe he did that, they're just reminding everybody that he supposedly went crazy and killed his family.
That doesn't make sense.
No.
It doesn't make sense.
If you believe that, why would you promote that?
Right.
If you don't believe he did it, I could see why you'd want to promote that. Or if you believed in Gray State, I could see why you'd want to promote that. But Sean doesn't make that would make as much sense as Danny Mason or Mason, whatever his last name is, Hest.
Hendricks.
One of them, Hendricks, yeah, one of them popping up wearing Gray State shirts. It wouldn't make any sense whatsoever.
Well, Greg, I see that you're no longer live, so are we done with this topic? The item 57?
We should still be live. Why are we not?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we are.
Mine shows that it went off, so am I in the wrong one?
How dare you? No, it should still be. I'm looking at it now. It looks like it's still live.
That's
I've
really all
got
that
it
I
on
had.
my end. It's still
And mine
laughing.
didn't shut off. That was weird. Okay, that was bizarre. Okay,
Yeah.
well, before I go, is there anything else you wanted me to say about this, Sophia, or are we good and you're going to take it from here?
I think we're good. That was everything that I wanted to cover. I put the two articles in regards to DNA and finding it on the bullets after fired in the group for the members to read.
Awesome.
And I think that's about it.
Okay, well, thank you for having me back on, guys, and I look forward to listening to the rest of what you guys talk about, and hope you all have a great day.
Thank you, Catherine, very much. I appreciate your help today.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank
Thank you.
you. Bye.
Greg, really, that's all that I had. And
Okay.
so if you want to wrap it up,
Sure.
that's cool with me.
Any final words? Anything you want to end with here? Thank you both for still
Uh,
being here.
the articles are in the group. The the BCA lab results are also in the group files.
Mhm.
So for any listeners who want to go and get that information, it's right there in the group files. And photos, they should be on your website, correct, Dawn? Greg, I'm sorry.
Yes, yeah. So if anybody goes to the graystage.wordpress.com, you'll be able to find all of the documents that we have on file. You'll be able to find all of the photos that we have. And of course, that is a good starting point, as we just talked
Yeah,
about in our podcast. That's where you start, And there's things that are in the reports that are not in the photos, and there's things that you'll find in the photos that are not in the reports. So take that for what you will. But I think it's very important to go through the documents yourself. One of the reasons why my book, is structured in that way is that, I didn't want to try to tell everybody that this is what happened. Okay, look, I've read everything, I've seen all the videos, I've seen all of the documents, I've seen all of the photos, I've spoken with people, so I know what is going on. That's not true. My only goal was to try to document it, to try to make it easier for so many people. There are so many people that I've seen since the very start of this that are just looking for the real information. They don't have time. They don't have hours. They don't have days. They don't have all of this time to try to research everything and find everything about this case. And I tried to do it in 200 pages, but it's just the very start. There's so much more to it. But when you get people that are just telling you not to look any further, people like Sean Wright, who are out there at this protest out in Minnesota, still pushing the same stuff that he was pushing back in 2012. And yet, a guy like that you cannot trust. You cannot take a person like that seriously, because it is a person who is trying to tell you that he was there. He was David Crowley's Rolodex. He knew everything about the project. He still knows everything, and he knows that David Crowley is guilty and can't provide one piece of information that David Crowley is guilty. There's something wrong with a person like that. Whether they are an informant, whether they are a useful idiot, whatever they are not a truth seeker. They are not somebody to be trusted. They are not a sincere person. And there's many people out there just like him. And you're always going to find those people. All that I would say is, don't let people like that turn you off from looking at the facts. Don't let them say, like he tried to say to me, don't you trust me? Because it was all about trusting him, not about looking at the facts. Focus on the people that are trying to give you the documentation, the photos that you can find for yourself to do your own research. Because the truth speaks for itself. Don't let other people try to tell you what the truth is. That's all I would say.
Thank you.
All right. And with that, I say, well, let's go ahead and wrap this one up. I want to thank you both for joining me here. And unless you have any final words, I'm going to go ahead and shut this stream down.
I just want to thank everybody in the chat room for joining us, and those listening. Thank you very much. Stay healthy and safe out there.
It looks like we do have one question. So Mel Carter has a question. I'm a little bit behind. I do have a question about the picture. Who was whited out in the picture, Kamel or their daughter, trying to get a visual? Yes, so in the picture that you just saw, and I will pull that one up, and I need to be 100% transparent about this. I was not in favor of putting this picture out when it first came out, but yet at that point I had already seen it. Had I not seen it, I probably would have been questioning the person who was saying, well, why don't you put that out? You want to be transparent, you want to talk about facts, you want people to look at this for themselves. Why aren't you putting that out? So this was something that was very difficult for me, and like I said, when I first saw it, I was not thrilled about it being put out there in public. I understand why the public needs to see this photo. So what you are seeing whited out, and I pulled it up here, is Rania, mostly, and the bottom part of Kamel. That's all I have. This is the only image that I've seen of these three bodies. And to be honest, it didn't help me that much, but I do believe that if we're going to say, you know what, I need as much data as possible, people need to see this photo. So my view on this photo has changed a lot since when I first got it. Right now I'm contemplating, the public should see it. And there was a time and place when the public could see it. And then Dan Hennon was asked to take that down by Kamel's sister, and he did. And that was basically it, and so I at this point, I'm not comfortable showing the daughter, definitely, and I'm not, I don't think there's anything more that you'll see of Kamel than you could find in another photo that is part of the public photos that we have. But the photo of David, because the accusations have continued, and because people are still out there trying to convince you that David Crowley is guilty, you look at this photo and you tell me, look at this photo, all you people out there, there's no way that this guy is guilty. There's no way that he could have done this. There's no way that he could have killed himself, and there's no way that the bullet could have gone into that ceiling. So it's a very important photo, but to me the most important thing about this photo is item 34. It's this recliner. Where this recliner is, you won't find that in many photos that they've given us. They purposely hid photos from us. Well, this is one that they couldn't hide. This is the best image of this recliner compared to where those bodies are. You have a huge blood stain, and I'm circling this blood stain here. If I could have found that in relationship to where the bodies were in any other photos, I'd probably just put those out. But they've hidden so many things. We can't even get a photo of where the gun is. That is ridiculous. They're telling us the gun is about a few inches from where David's hand is, and I mean, it's just because they have played so many games, because they have, tried to hide so many things. This is all we have. This is the photo that will show pretty much there's no reason to believe David Crowley is guilty. And I think that's why they might have hidden this photo, because it clearly shows that. It clearly shows that somebody was lined up, somebody's blood is against this recliner, and you can see that none of the bodies are anywhere near it. How did the blood get there? There's a huge stain there. Somebody's body was moved at some point. So I think, um, I think more data requests need to be filled out, and I think we need to get more photos of these three bodies. That's my final word on it.
Just going by the photos, when we first started doing these, there was I don't remember which photo it was, but we were going through photo by photo, and Sophia pointed out that on the little table behind that tree the gun was just sitting there. And so if you go through just the pictures, you don't see the gun on the floor. You just see it like on the table, and then it's in a box, and then there's the one picture of the knife, and then it's in a box, and then there's all this other stuff that you see at one place, and then it's on top of something else, or it's on the floor. And maybe it's just because we're not investigators or crime scene people. Maybe we just are not understanding their logic, I guess, in putting the gun and the knife in these weird places, and the other thing is, we don't even know if maybe there's pictures in between there that we were not given. Detective Gummert had said there were hundreds, at least, that were not released. And to an extent, I can understand, because if this was my family, I wouldn't want my family plastered all over the internet like that. But at the same time, if the police department made a mistake, as all human beings do, no matter how hard we try, we all make mistakes. And being police officers especially, they're more scrutinized, when they do make mistakes. But if they were to come up and say, yes, we made a mistake with this case, and just have somebody else reinvestigate it, even if he is found to be guilty, at least we would have the proof, because somebody else stepping in would give you a step-by-step of, okay, well, going down the line, we found this and this and this and this and this, and this is why he's guilty. But if they admit they were wrong, how many other cases are going to be brought up against them that need to be reopened and relooked at? So their hands are kind of tied. I see that. I do also see that, David is dead. There's no one to prosecute. So it's easy. It's open and shut. Whereas if he was alive, he'd be sitting in jail, sending out petitions and contacting people and trying to get somebody to fight for his cause. And it would be thrown out, like Greg said, of a courtroom. There's no judge that would look at what they give as evidence against David for him to be the only person who was able to commit this crime. It's all circumstantial.
Right.
And you can't say 100% without a doubt someone did this without having the proof to back it up.
That's right.
And the reason why we're putting all of this information out there, whether it's on the Facebook page or on YouTube or wherever, is because we don't want people to believe the same thing we believe because that's what we say. We want everyone else who comes to this and looks into David Crowley to form their own opinion based on what they see, and hopefully it is someday found out that no, he didn't commit this crime. Because so far, nobody's been able to point out anything that really shows he did it. I can't find one thing that shows he did this, other than he was in the house.
And I've said this from the very beginning. Just show me the proof. It has to be actual proof, but show it to me. And I can, just put this to bed right now. But nobody's shown me actual proof. I'm just not going to take somebody's word for it.
Right.
I want
We've
to
taken
see
the
it.
time to look into all of this, to file the request, to get all the paperwork, to sort through it all. You know, we want someone to give us their, you know, research of, you know, to not even give it, just show us, you know, this is what I found that proves he's guilty. We have the research. We have proof that he's not guilty. Why can't someone come and give us the same, that, you know, they have found evidence that proves he's guilty, other than he was there dead and he had a gun by his left hand?
But the exit for the bullet that supposedly killed him is on the left side. So how does that even make sense?
Well, I mean, maybe if he's like laying crouched over with like in like that prayer position, like, who was it that said that? Which friend?
I'm not exactly sure.
One of the friends. I don't remember if it was Mason Hendricks or Danny Mason. I'm pretty sure one of them said that he was like crouched down on his knees, like praying, and that's how the bullet got up into the ceiling, because he shot himself
Yeah,
from
that
this
was.
position.
I think that was the first time that I heard that. At least that was something that Kamel's sister was told. Obviously, she didn't see that. She didn't know that. But remember, she was being fed information by Mason Hendricks, and I don't know who else, but definitely by him and maybe other people, probably Sean Wright too. But so I feel like she was just going on what she was told, and that she
Hmm.
thought that they were honest, that they were good human beings. I think she found out later on, once Eric Nelson's film came out, I think she realized that they were not telling her the truth, that the way that they portrayed her in that film and the way that they wanted to make Kamel look, to make them look crazy. I think at that point, that's when Kamel's family really started to understand who the Gray State team was, what their goals were, and why they wanted to make Kamel look crazy. Because if they could make Kamel look crazy, they could take a lot of the pressure off of David, and they could still sell this product. They could still walk around with their Gray State t-shirts and feel good about themselves, which they shouldn't. It makes no sense to be walking around with a Gray State t-shirt in 2020. You have got to be a complete idiot, a complete moron to do something like that. It makes no sense at all, unless you are just basically almost like returning to the scene of the crime. You're just basically throwing it in people's faces. Or, in Sean Wright's case, you're just an idiot. And
Well,
you,
he's Sean motherfucking Wright. So
I mean, it just there's no logic. You know, there's nothing good about that. There's nobody that should be feeling good walking around in a Gray State T-shirt. If they are accusing David Crowley of being guilty, you're walking around with a T-shirt that is made by someone that you believe is a child killer. Why would you do that? Why would you do that? I mean, these cannot be rational people.
Well, Greg, I thank you very much for allowing me to present the articles and go over this information today. And
You
I
got it.
am going to have to
Let's
jump
wrap
off.
it up. All right, let's wrap it up here. I want to thank everybody then for joining us, and until we meet again, I know we have another conference call coming up, probably maybe early May is what it looks like, and of course May 1st we will have the next podcast coming up. Until then, thank you all. God bless you all.
Have a great night, everybody.
Me too.